Some people don't just notice other people's success, they measure themselves against it. They see someone doing well and immediately feel behind. They see someone looking confident and suddenly feel smaller. They see someone achieving something, and instead of feeling inspired, they feel quietly attacked. And the painful part is, they know comparison hurts them, but they keep doing it anyway. Psychology explains why. One of the biggest reasons people compare themselves to everyone is something psychologist Leon Festinger called social comparison theory. Festinger believed that human beings naturally evaluate themselves by comparing their abilities, success, appearance, choices, and progress with other people. In simple words, the brain wants to know, where do I stand? Am I doing enough? Am I falling behind? Am I valuable? And this instinct is not completely useless. In small amounts, comparison can help people learn, grow, and understand their place in the world. But when comparison becomes constant, it stops being information. It becomes emotional punishment. The person no longer looks at others to learn. They look at others to judge themselves. And that changes everything. There are two common forms of comparison. Upward comparison happens when someone compares themselves to people who seem better, richer, smarter, more attractive, more successful, more loved, or more confident. Downward comparison happens when someone compares themselves to people who seem worse off, so they can feel temporarily better. But people trapped in comparison usually live mostly in upward comparison. They don't compare themselves to real people. They compare themselves to the best parts of other people, someone else's achievement, someone else's relationship, someone else's body, someone else's confidence, someone else's social life, someone else's highlight moment, and then they compare that highlight to their own behind-the-scenes life. That is why comparison is so psychologically unfair. You are comparing your internal struggle to someone else's external performance. You know every fear inside your own mind, but you only see the polished version of someone else's life. So your brain creates a false conclusion. They are doing better than me. I am not enough. I should be further ahead. And over time, this becomes a mental habit. The brain starts scanning the environment for proof that other people are ahead. Someone buys a house. Proof. Someone gets into a relationship. Proof. Someone looks happier. Proof. Someone gets attention. Proof. And slowly, life stops feeling like a personal journey. It starts feeling like a competition you never agreed to enter. This is where comparison becomes dangerous. Because the person stops asking, what do I actually want? And starts asking, why don't I have what they have? That question can quietly disconnect someone from their real self. Psychologist Tory Higgins explains something similar through self-discrepancy theory. This theory suggests that emotional pain often comes from the gap between who we are, who we think we should be, and who we wish we were. People who constantly compare themselves usually have a very harsh, ideal self in their mind. They believe they should be more successful, more attractive, more disciplined, more confident, more emotionally stable, more impressive. And every time they see someone who appears closer to that ideal, they feel the gap inside themselves. That gap becomes shame. And shame is one of the strongest fuels behind comparison. Because shame doesn't say, I want to improve. Shame says, something is wrong with me. That is why comparison often feels so heavy. It is not just about wanting more. It is about feeling less. And many people who compare themselves to everyone were not born that way. They were trained into it. Maybe they grew up being compared to siblings, to classmates, to cousins, to neighbors. Maybe love and praise were given only when they performed well. Maybe they learned early that being average meant being invisible. So their brain created a rule. To be valued, I must be better. And once that belief becomes part of the nervous system, comparison becomes automatic. They don't compare because they are shallow. They compare because their brain is searching for safety through achievement. If they are good enough, maybe they won't be rejected. If they are impressive enough, maybe they will be chosen. If they stay ahead, maybe they will finally feel secure. But the problem is, comparison never gives permanent security. Even when they achieve something, the relief doesn't last. Because there is always someone doing more, someone earning more, someone looking better, someone moving faster, someone being praised louder. So the finish line keeps moving, and the person becomes trapped in what psychologists sometimes call the Hedonic Treadmill. They reach one goal, feel good briefly, then quickly return to dissatisfaction, and start chasing the next thing. Comparison makes peace impossible because it constantly moves the standard. Another reason comparison becomes addictive is the brain's reward system. When someone checks social media and sees other people's lives, the brain receives quick emotional signals: curiosity, envy, insecurity, excitement, fear of missing out, sometimes even motivation. These emotional spikes can become habit-forming. The person keeps looking, even though it hurts. They scroll to feel connected, but end up feeling behind. They look for inspiration, but leave with anxiety. And social media intensifies comparison because it removes context. You don't see the full relationship. You see the anniversary picture. You don't see the stress behind the success. You see the announcement. You don't see the loneliness behind the smile. You see the vacation. So the brain fills in the missing details with fantasy. And fantasy is always more painful to compare yourself against than reality. Another hidden reason people compare themselves is the spotlight effect. Psychologists use this term to describe how people often overestimate how much others notice and judge them. A person trapped in comparison may constantly feel watched. They think people are noticing their flaws, their lack of progress, their appearance, their failures, their awkwardness. So they start measuring themselves before anyone else can. Comparison becomes a form of self-protection. If I notice my flaws first, maybe I can fix them before others judge me. But this creates a painful inner world. The person becomes both the critic and the victim of their own mind. And the sad part is, people who compare themselves constantly often lose the ability to enjoy their own progress. They achieve something, but someone else achieved more. They look better, but someone else looks better. They improve, but someone else is already ahead. So nothing feels enough. Even success gets poisoned by comparison. This is why psychologist Kristin Neff's work on self-compassion is so important. Self-compassion does not mean being lazy or making excuses. It means learning to treat yourself like a human being instead of a failed project. People who compare themselves constantly usually speak to themselves with cruelty. They call themselves behind, weak, not attractive enough, not successful enough, not disciplined enough. But cruelty does not create long-term confidence. It creates fear. And fear may push someone temporarily, but it slowly destroys inner peace. Real growth requires a different question. Not, how do I become better than them? But, what kind of life actually feels meaningful to me? Because comparison makes you chase someone else's definition of success. But self-awareness brings you back to your own. And the truth is, someone else's path may look impressive and still not belong to you. Their timing is not your timing. Their strengths are not your strengths. Their life is not your assignment. The more you compare, the more you abandon your own direction. But the more you understand yourself, the less power comparison has over you. The goal is not to never compare again. That is unrealistic. The goal is to notice comparison without obeying it, to see someone winning and not turn it into proof that you are losing, to admire without shrinking, to learn without self-hatred, to grow without needing to become someone else. Because your worth was never supposed to be measured against every person you see. And one of the strongest psychological shifts a person can make is realizing this. Someone else's success is not evidence of your failure. Someone else's beauty is not evidence of your ugliness. Someone else's confidence is not evidence of your weakness. Someone else's timeline is not evidence that you are late. You are not behind in someone else's life. You are only responsible for becoming more honest, more aware, and more aligned in your own. And the moment you stop using other people as mirrors for your worth, you finally begin seeing yourself clearly. If this video connected with you, comment which part felt most true. And if you enjoy deep psychology content like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos about human behavior, emotions, self-worth, and the hidden patterns of the mind. See you in the next one.